Planning to run a session 0? Don't do this stupid crap. Hi, I'm RPG Van Winkle, and I make cool tools to help you play better games. I totally screwed up my first session 0. The negative impact was far-reaching into my years-long campaign. The characters never trusted each other, which transformed into player-on-player conflict. What's more, the canon of the world and the characters was so over-preloaded that consistency became a major source of anxiety for me. What's a session 0, you ask? For the uninitiated, session 0 is the session you have before you start actually playing Dungeons & Dragons, or some other tabletop role-playing game. It evolved from a more simple character creation session into something like a planning and expectations setting meeting. This could include discussing house rules, world lore, scheduling issues, and safety tools for extreme content. It's a tool that I do highly recommend, and in fact, I've developed a DM toolkit to help dungeon masters run awesome session 0s. We never did session 0 in the 80s. Like, I'm RPG Van Winkle. I played advanced Dungeons & Dragons, and then took a long winter's nap from role-playing games in general, and re-emerged from my gaming coma into a totally different world. I completely missed 2nd edition, 3rd edition, 3rd and a half edition, 4th edition, Pathfinder. You know, I went from like Gary Gygax to Matt Mercer without any stops in between. So the idea of a session 0 was totally foreign to me, and to make matters worse, I hadn't even participated in a session 0 that somebody else ran. I just went in cold. Epic fail number 1, bad party planning. In my first campaign as a dungeon master with a newly reignited passion for D&D, I gleefully made a really dumb rookie mistake. The party was not formed intentionally by the players. Each character was an unrelated, innocent bystander to like a terrorist attack event in a city. During the attack, they literally fell down a hole into a dungeon together. Taking their cue from the title of the campaign, which was Secrets of the Saints, and playing on the who the heck are you guys and what just happened vibe of the first session, the characters totally mistrusted each other, both upfront and ongoing. I literally cooked a lack of party cohesion with a healthy portion of character infighting right into the campaign. This is a bad plan. It leads to slow play and some frustrating situations interpersonally that can eventually turn into player-on-player conflict. Epic fail number 2, massive lore overload. I wrote a booklet of lore before we started. Each player was handed a hand-stitched copy on parchment-style paper, and no, it was not a good idea. 2 simultaneous, paradoxical realities were created when I did this. Reality A, it's all canon now. Consistency is critical as a DM. Once something becomes canon, you need to uphold it in the game. This is exactly why generating a booklet of world lore ahead of any reasonable need to do so is akin to suicide. You become indentured to the details that don't matter now, but may completely bite you in the butt down the road. Everything from currency to geography to technology was in there, like variable combat performance of weapons depending on where they were made. Trying to actually manage that in the game became impossible. Reality B, players don't read. Getting players to read the rulebooks is hard enough. I think my players probably skimmed the lore, but didn't really invest themselves. So while I was indentured to the content, I simultaneously could not rely on them to remember the details that were relevant for any given session. Worst of both worlds. Oh, and I did this too. I encouraged my players to write epic backstories for their characters, pages, with family trees and any other details they could muster. Boy, what a pair of handcuffs that became. Trying to service the extensive histories of a group of characters who had no relationship to each other at all. When we replaced a player, we did cook in a prior relationship between his and another player's character. That equation yielded exponentially. But more on that in an upcoming video. Epic fail number 3. Gen X Safety Gaffs. I consider myself to be plenty woke for a middle-aged Gen X cisgendered male. That did not stop me from stuffing my big dumb foot into my big dumb mouth more than once with my millennial and Gen Z players. We did not work out effectively the boundaries of extreme or offensive content ahead of the game, and as such, I screwed up a few times. I will not share what I said lest you brand me a Neanderthal. Epic fail number 4. Chaos and boredom. My session zeros, both the first and second campaign, were just kind of a buzzkill. We didn't actually make characters or run any game time at all. I relied too much on the players to generate the session with their discussion. Everyone waited to hear what everyone else had to say, which meant that no one said much of anything at all. My second session zero landed us in a better place with a party that worked together because the characters knew each other, but mostly the session was a waste of time. After these frustrating experiences of my own, I set out on a quest, just on the internet. I didn't actually go anywhere, a Google quest, to understand what makes up a killer, epic Session Zero. You can get sucked down that rabbit hole of Session Zero blog posts and tools pretty darn quick. There is a lot of healthy discussion about safety tools in particular, like Monty Cook's survey and the Luxton technique, for example, are free and available to everybody. I spent a lot of time cobbling together everything I needed for my next Session Zero, and frankly, I still came up a bit short. This inspired me to create my own Session Zero DM toolkit, like a one-stop shop that does everything. You can run the whole thing as a system together, or you can pick it apart and use the pieces. This is the first video in a series in which I'm going to go through the rationale behind each tool in that toolkit. I'm going to talk about my experiences a little bit more in depth, mostly my failures, and the research that went into designing it. So I hope you'll stick with me.